Picture this. You're sitting in the driver's seat of a car. Your hands are gripping the steering wheel, knuckles are completely white, and your foot is just mashed all the way down on the gas pedal.
Oh, like totally flooring it.
Exactly. The engine is absolutely roaring, the RPMs are redlining, and there's like this thick, acrid smoke billowing out from your back tires. You are expending a massive amount of energy,
Right.
but the car isn't moving a single inch.
Right.
And it's not moving because, whether you realize it or not, you have the parking brake yanked all the way up.
Yeah, that is exhausting just thinking about it.
It really is. It's the ultimate display of exhausting yourself while generating zero forward momentum. And it's exactly what Jen Sincero argues we do to our own lives in her book, You Are Badass.
Which is such a good analogy for it.
So today, our mission for this deep dive is to get into her notes and figure out how you can finally, release that psychological parking brake. We're going to extract the exact mechanics of how to stop settling for a lukewarm existence and start unlocking a reality of limitless possibilities.
Love that.
And what makes this source material so compelling right out of the gate is her own starting point. She didn't begin as some enlightened guru on a mountaintop.
No, not at all.
She's a hardcore skeptic who actively avoided the self-help world because she felt it reeked of desperation, rah-rah churchiness, and like unwanted hugs from unappealing strangers.
Yeah, that skepticism is such a crucial foundation for everything we're going to talk about today, because so many of us look at the concept of self-transformation and we just roll our eyes.
Right, like, oh, here we go with the crystals and the vision board.
Exactly. And it's largely a defense mechanism, right? Because it is much safer to be cynical than to be vulnerable. But the core premise we're exploring today, the bridge you really have to cross, is the pivotal shift from simply wanting to change your life to actually deciding to change it.
Wanting versus deciding. That's a huge distinction.
It is, because wanting is passive. I mean, you can want to travel the world while sitting on your couch eating potato chips. But deciding, that means jumping in all the way, burning the boats, and dealing with the consequences. And the universe demands that total uncompromising commitment when you make that decision.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can figure out how to create an awesome life, we have to understand what is keeping you stuck in the first place, right?
Right.
Like, you can't dismantle a trap if you don't know how the spring works. So the author breaks down our mental machinery into two distinct parts. First, you have the conscious mind.
The logical part.
Yeah. Think of this as the analytical overachiever of your brain. It understands logic, it sets goals, but doesn't fully develop until you hit puberty. And then you have the subconscious mind.
And that one is basically a filterless, non-analytical little kid.
Exactly. It arrives fully formed at birth. Its only job is to soak up and store the early beliefs, fears, and behaviors from the people around you. And it records all of it as absolute, unquestionable truth.
And see, the danger of the subconscious mind is that it does not know the difference between what is objectively true and what is simply a learned inherited behavior.
It just accepts it.
Right. It just runs the software it was given. So if you grew up in a house where you were told that money is scarce and only greedy people are wealthy.
Or that, like, expressing your emotions leads to punishment.
Yes. Your subconscious internalizes that as the concrete blueprint for your reality. It's constantly operating in the background, making your decisions for you before your conscious mind even has a chance to weigh in.
She shares this hilariously awkward story that perfectly illustrates how paralyzing this background software can be. So she had a terrible bowling accident.
Oh, the lane oil.
Yeah, she slipped on the lane oil and crashed down really hard on her back. So because she had this lingering pain, she was forced to go mattress shopping.
Which is already a nightmare.
Right. So she's lying on a bed in a department store, testing it out. And this salesman she calls Freak Show Bob decides his best sales tactic is to lie down right next to her on his back.
Oh my gosh. On the same bed.
On the exact same bed.
Yeah.
Just staring at the ceiling, chatting away like they're stargazing at summer camp. It is a total violation of personal space.
Which should trigger a very simple conscious response like, hey, please get off this bed.
Exactly. But she doesn't do that. Instead of asking him to move, she completely freezes, politely makes some excuse, sneaks out of the store, and completely blows her only chance to buy a mattress that week.
Wow.
And she traces this baffling reaction right back to her waspy upbringing. Her family's deeply ingrained response to any potential confrontation was to basically freeze, talk about the weather, or just run in the opposite direction.
So that inherited trait was hardwired into her subconscious.
Totally. It completely overrode her conscious desire to just buy a mattress and heal her back. And it makes you wonder, where in your own life are you currently lying on a metaphorical mattress with a weird salesman just because your subconscious programming tells you it's rude to set a boundary?
That underlying programming is what she terms the big snooze.
The big snooze.
Yeah, it's her phrase for the ego or the shadow self. The big snooze is the physical manifestation of all those limiting false beliefs, and its entire operational framework is built on fear.
Like it just wants to keep you safe.
Exactly. It lives entirely in the past, agonizing over old mistakes, or in the future, panicking about what might go wrong. It absolutely despises risk, and its sole purpose is to keep you safely confined within the familiar walls of your existing comfort zone, even if that comfort zone is making you miserable.
See, this highlights a massive internal contradiction. It brings us right back to that car analogy from the beginning. You have your conscious mind pressing heavily on the gas pedal, saying, I want to start a business, or I want a healthy relationship.
Right.
And you have your subconscious mind, the big snooze jamming the parking brake up, screaming, no, change means danger, we might fail.
Yeah.
But she mentions a client who tried to push through this.
Yeah.
It gets kind of crazy.
Oh, the story is wild.
Yeah, so he finally quit his secure but unfulfilling job to start his dream company. Almost immediately after he resigned, he got 2 flat tires, his kitchen flooded, his babysitter backed into his wife's car.
Just boom, boom, boom.
And right before his first big deal, he was literally hit by a bus.
An actual bus.
An actual public transit vehicle. Like, are we supposed to believe his subconscious mind magically summoned a bus to run him over? Because that sounds like magical thinking.
Well, what's fascinating here is the actual mechanism behind the chaos. Because it feels supernatural, but it's deeply psychological. When you make a massive decision to change your life, the big snooze goes into a panic state, a detox phase.
The detox phase, okay.
Yeah, your brain is flooded with anxiety and cortisol because you're stepping out of the tribe, out of the known. So when your nervous system is that overloaded, your situational awareness plummets.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. You become incredibly distracted, you make sloppy decisions, you forget to check your tires, you leave a faucet running, or you literally step off a curb without looking left. It isn't the universe punishing you for making a change.
That's your own brain.
It is your own overloaded, terrified subconscious aggressively trying to force you back into the safety of the known, basically by creating absolute havoc in your physical environment.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because if the big snooze is capable of creating that much friction to keep us operating at a low panicked frequency, we can't just fight it with logic, right?
Oh, no, logic doesn't work.
We have to actively shift the underlying frequency we are operating on to attract what we actually want. And this introduces the book's concept of source energy, which she also calls the G word, the universe, or the vortex. It hinges on the law of attraction, meaning vibration attracts like vibration.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's entirely about energetic alignment. Everything in the universe, including our thoughts, carries a specific vibrational frequency.
Right.
You physically cannot attract high-frequency experiences like joy, abundance, or fulfilling relationships if your internal state is constantly broadcasting on a low frequency of fear, resentment, or unworthiness.
I like to think of it like a tuning fork. If you walk into a room full of string instruments and you strike a tuning fork that is calibrated to an A natural, only the strings in that room that are tuned to that exact same A natural frequency will start vibrating in response.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
The rest of the strings will stay completely silent. If your internal tuning fork is vibrating with scarcity or victimhood, the only experiences and people that will resonate with you are those that match that scarcity.
Exactly.
And the author actually experienced the mechanics of this shift firsthand. She tells this brilliant story about going to a Western bar in Albuquerque called the Midnight Rodeo.
Right. With her East Coast friends.
Yeah, they were all highly cynical, so they went just to snootily mock the giant belt buckles and the line dancing. Because irony is a very low-frequency defense mechanism.
It really is. It keeps you detached.
Exactly. But slowly, as the night went on, they started ironically joining in, which transitioned into genuinely trying to learn the steps, and eventually they were sneaking off every weekend to line dance with complete sincerity.
That's so funny.
She draws a direct parallel between dropping her cynical guard at a country bar and dropping her guard on her spiritual journey. She moved from rolling her eyes at the concept of source energy to fully sincerely tuning her frequency to it.
Because she allowed herself to drop the armor. And we see the practical, real-world application of this frequency shift in the story of the Tuscan villa.
Oh, the bartender.
Yes. She details a broke bartender and poet who visits Italy and falls completely in love with a villa that is mathematically entirely out of her financial reach.
Like, not even close.
Not even close. But instead of letting her big snoods say, oh, I can't afford this, I should just go home, she refuses to accept her current reality as a permanent limitation,
She actually goes to the owners and says, take it off the market, it's my house, I'll figure it out.
which requires an immense shift in internal conviction.
A terrifying amount.
Truly. But this reveals the most vital rule of manifestation. You have to change your internal reality first, and only then does the external evidence appear. Most people live backwards.
How do you mean?
They say, well, show me the money, show me the perfect partner, and then I will believe I am worthy of them. But the bartender changed her thinking first. She adopted the frequency of a homeowner, and because her internal state shifted, her brain started filtering the world differently. She suddenly saw opportunities she would have previously ignored. She ignored the chorus of people calling her crazy, and she came up with a creative plan to pre-rent blocks of time at the villa to wealthy tourists, basically to fund her own purchase of it.
That's genius.
She aligned her energy, took massive decisive action, and the physical evidence materialized.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate here for a second.
Yeah.
Because it is really easy to read a book and say, oh, just rewrite your story. Change your thinking.
Right, easier said than done.
Yeah, how do you actually convince yourself of this grand new reality when your current physical reality involves, like, eating dollar menu tacos alone in a rickety apartment with a past due electric bill? You know, you can't just snap your fingers and pretend you're wealthy and happy.
You certainly don't just snap your fingers. You have to actively identify and dismantle the false narratives you've been using to protect yourself.
Right.
The book uses a really striking visual for this. Imagine a panicked bird trapped in your living room. It aggressively slams into a glass window over and over again, exhausting itself and getting injured, completely ignoring the open door just 3 feet away.
It's just blinded by panic.
Exactly. And we do the exact same thing in our lives. We aggressively pursue things the hardest, most painful way possible, completely blinded by our limiting stories, while the obvious, frictionless solution sits right next to us.
She talks about these specific personas we adopt to survive, like lonely-hearted Sally or broke-ass Joe. And she says we cling to these miserable stories because we actually get what she calls false rewards from them.
Yes, the false rewards.
Now, wait a minute. How is being chronically depressed or constantly broke a reward for anyone? That just sounds like pure misery.
Well, it is miserable, but it provides psychological safety, which the big snooze craves above all else.
Okay.
If your deeply held story is that you're chronically depressed and incapable of success, the false reward is that you never have to take a risk. You're insulated from the pain of trying and failing because you never try in the first place. If your story is that you're meant to be single because everyone out there is untrustworthy, the false reward is that you never have to be vulnerable. You get to be right, and you get to be safe.
That is so true.
To rewrite this, she suggests a very specific mechanical exercise. You have to write down the false rewards your current miserable story is giving you. You literally thank your inner child for trying to protect you, because that is all those defense mechanisms are trying to do, and then you consciously replace that old story with a new, powerful truth.
I think the ultimate example of someone who has completely abandoned those limiting societal stories is a guy she calls Loincloth Man.
Oh, this guy.
Yeah, she was hiking deep in the Utah desert and bumped into this guy who had been living in caves for like 13 years. He is impossibly good looking. He's wearing a custom-tailored leather loincloth, and he's carrying a dead squirrel by the tail that he hunted with a homemade spear.
Just a totally normal Tuesday.
Right. And the thing that struck her wasn't his lack of pants. It was that he was completely, 100% unapologetic. He did not care for a single second what anyone thought of his life choices. He was vibrating at a frequency of total self-acceptance.
He represents ultimate liberation from the opinions of others, and that is crucial because when you start rewriting your reality and shifting your frequency, society is going to react.
And they usually don't react well.
No, they do not react with applause. She uses a brilliant analogy involving the Wright brothers. She imagines the local town gossips, Margaret, Ruth, and Helen, sitting on a porch eating tapioca pudding, just shaking their heads in disgust at how disgraceful it is that the Wright boys actually think they can build a flying machine.
People get deeply unsettled when you step out of the herd. When you break the rules of what is possible, it basically holds up a mirror to their own self-imposed limitations, and they hate it.
Absolutely.
And taking action in the face of that societal friction is terrifying. Which is why once you drop your old stories, you have to learn how to stay anchored in the present moment rather than letting the big snooze drag you into the future to panic.
And this brings up the neurological reality of fear. She uses the example of doing pigeon pose in a yoga class. For anyone with tight hips, it is a notoriously agonizing stretch.
That was the worst.
As she holds the pose, her brain is screaming with mental chatter. She's terrified she's going to dislocate a joint in the next few seconds. She's furious at the instructor for talking too much. She's agonizing over the time. But the second she consciously shuts off that mental chatter and forces herself to just breathe into the physical sensation of the now, the suffering vanishes and she feels this sudden, deep bliss.
Because the fear wasn't in the actual physical sensation. The fear was entirely manufactured in her anticipation of the future.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for how we approach our goals? Well, she introduces this concept of being the alien. Imagine you're an alien who just dropped from outer space straight into your current physical body. You have absolutely no baggage. You don't have the memory of failing that accounting exam 3 times. You don't have the memory of your last messy breakup. You just look around at the resources, the relationships, and the opportunities available to you in this exact second with fresh, unburdened eyes.
It's a clean slate.
Yeah, it instantly removes the sunk cost fallacy from your life.
And it pairs beautifully with the beginner mindset. I mean, think of a toddler learning how to walk. When a toddler falls down, they don't look around to see if anyone is judging them.
Right, they don't care.
They don't worry about their personal brand taking a hit. They don't obsess over the mechanics of their knees. They just focus entirely on getting to the edge of the coffee table. But as adults, we become paralyzed by the need to be perceived as experts immediately. We refuse to take action unless we know we're going to look good doing it.
The author totally bypassed that paralysis when she started a fake rock band called Crotch with her friend Paula.
Which is such a great name.
It is. And neither of them actually knew how to play their instrument. Their entire operating philosophy was just, I want to see what I can get away with.
Just pure audacity.
Pure audacity. And because they were so wildly passionate, vibrating at that high frequency of pure joy, they attracted a massive following and actually ended up with a demo deal from Columbia Records.
That's unbelievable.
And she applied that exact same beginner's audacity to the Ethnic Folk Arts Festival. She bluffed her way into a job producing this massive Polish beer garden event despite having zero experience. She succeeded simply by breaking the overwhelming task down into tiny, actionable chunks and doing whatever it took in the present moment, rather than panicking about the grand scale of the whole event.
And this raises an important question for you, the listener, to confront. How often is your procrastination not actually a time management issue, but simply a mask for perfectionism and fear?
Ouch. That's a good question.
We wait until we feel ready. We wait until the economic conditions are flawless or until we have the perfect business plan. But waiting for perfection is just another clever way the big snooze keeps you safely frozen in place. The ultimate lesson from the fake band and the folk festival is that messy action is the only antidote to fear.
Done is always better than perfect.
Always.
Okay, but let's talk about the friction of the real world. Because as you start taking this massive action, adopting the beginner mindset, and living your new high-frequency reality, you are inevitably going to collide with other people.
Oh, yes. The difficult personalities.
Right. And how you handle the people who irritate you determines whether you maintain your momentum or get dragged right back down to a low vibration.
This introduces the psychological framework she calls millions of mirrors. The premise is that the people who irritate us the most are rarely just annoying in a vacuum. They're usually acting as mirrors, reflecting back a suppressed part of ourselves that we deeply dislike, or they're triggering a heavily guarded insecurity.
She tells a story about her best friend, who she calls Pink. Pink is the quintessential girly girl. She loves Monty Python. She screams when she sees a shiny engagement ring. She's just radiating traditional femininity.
And the author is the exact opposite.
Right. She always prided herself on being a tough, macho, sarcastic tomboy. So she was dreading this trip to San Diego with Pink and Pink's college friend, assuming it would be an unbearable estrogen fest.
Naturally.
But once they got together, they realized they all actually had a bit of macho energy, and ironically, being around Pink made the author feel safe enough to let her own suppressed, fun femininity come out.
That's so interesting.
The very thing she was harshly judging in Pink was actually a part of her own identity she had locked away out of fear.
It is a profound shift in perspective. When someone's behavior gets under your skin, instead of blaming them, you use it as an opportunity for self-inquiry. Why does this bother me so much? What is this reflecting about my own boundaries?
Hmm.
She provides a brilliant, pragmatic analogy for this. Imagine you are managing a store and you have two employees who both fail to show up for work on the same busy day, leaving you completely alone to handle the rush. One employee is absent because they're hungover from a party. The other is absent because they just had a sudden tragic death in their family.
The physical reality of the situation is exactly the same, right?
Yeah.
You're stuck doing all the work by yourself.
Exactly. But your internal reaction to those two absences would be wildly different. You'd be furious at the hungover employee and deeply compassionate toward the grieving one. This proves that your emotional reaction is entirely a choice. It is not dictated by the physical circumstance,
Yeah.
which means you have the power to take the offending person out of the equation entirely to find your own peace. You do not have to carry the anger just because someone handed it to you.
She learned that lesson the hard way on a bus ride in India. She paid extra for a super deluxe express bus to Delhi, expecting a quiet, efficient 5-hour ride. Instead, because it happened to be peak wedding season, the bus got trapped in endless street parades.
Oh no.
Yeah, and then they picked up a wandering holy man on the side of the road who literally hijacked the route and took all the passengers on a surprise 2-hour walking tour of ancient temples.
You can't script that.
At first, she was tense, furious, and just radiating low-frequency annoyance. But she looked around and realized everyone else on the bus was just rolling with it, enjoying the adventure. The mantra she took away from that was, loosen your bone, Wilma.
Loosen your bones.
Sometimes you just have to surrender to the reality of the moment because resisting it only exhausts you and lowers your frequency.
And surrendering to the flow applies to abundance as well. She shares a beautiful observation of her 5-year-old niece. The little girl was allowed to buy a 6-pack of orange Tic Tacs, which was a huge treat.
A big deal for a 5-year-old.
Oh, huge. But instead of hoarding them, she immediately and joyfully handed them out to everyone in the room until she had absolutely none left for herself. She understood instinctively that the act of giving and the act of receiving are both high-frequency expressions of abundance. Hoarding, on the other hand, operates on the low-frequency assumption that there will never be enough to go around.
It all comes down to what you are holding on to. Think about the person who annoys you the most right now in your own life. Are they actually ruining your day, or are they just triggering an insecurity? Are you holding on to anger toward them?
And that is the ultimate test of forgiveness. We often misunderstand forgiveness as letting the other person off the hook or validating their bad behavior. It's not about them at all.
It's about you.
Forgiveness is about taking the poison out of your own body. As long as you hold on to resentment, you're essentially drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. When you forgive, you sever that energetic cord. You release the block, which allows you to stay connected to source energy and maintain your high frequency.
So to pull all these mechanics together, stepping into a life of limitless possibilities isn't about becoming an arrogant, selfish person. It is about actively silencing the big snooze, recognizing the false rewards keeping you stuck, tuning your internal frequency to match the exact life you want, and taking unapologetic, messy action even when your brain is screaming in fear.
It requires deep trust in the mechanics of manifestation, which honestly leaves us with a final, rather challenging implication to consider.
Okay, what is it?
If the universe strictly operates on the law of attraction, matching your external reality to your internal frequency, what happens to the people currently in your life when your frequency drastically shifts?
Oh.
As you step into your new reality, elevate your vibration, and refuse to accept the false rewards of your old stories, will your current circle of friends choose to elevate with you, or will the universe naturally and perhaps painfully prune them away to make room for your new life?
That is something to seriously chew on as you evaluate who you are spending your time with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It is time to step out of your comfort zone, get brutally honest about your limiting stories, and most importantly, reach down and finally release that parking brake. We'll see you next time.